Everybody, hope you're well. Hope you've had a good week and having a great weekend. Welcome everybody, old friends and new. This week is going to be all about the MFT Plus jig, of which I have a mock-up here. Not a prototype. It is not functioning. Sort of functions, but it's not. Wasn't designed for that. It was just designed when we were in the photographic business. We'd often have mock-up packs to photograph before the real thing went into production. That's all this is. It's a size and shape kind of thing, just to make sure that you get the feel of it. Like, hilariously, I didn't have a piece of MDF big enough. I started measuring it out and realised I didn't have a bit big enough, so I had to join it. Got the domino out for the first time in ages. I'm going to sit down and explain this to you in a little bit more detail. Okay. So I think I said before in other videos, quite excited about this because it's come together really quickly. I started drawing it up late on a Thursday and continued on a Friday, and the penny just dropped, one of those light bulb moments, and it's actually come together really fast. Reese is doing the CAD on it. We're getting a proper prototype coming through. But this is the mock-up. This is the sort of thing that you put together just to check out in your mind how it's going to look and feel, and it's working out really well. Basically, it's a plus jig, so it's a little bit bigger and it does more. It's not quite an amalgamation of the other MFT type jigs, but the experiences that I had with those have definitely influenced me on this and definitely pushed me to get this one out there sooner rather than later, because once I realised the areas where the others sort of left me wanting, it was actually pretty quick and easy to figure out what I wanted on this. So it's a 3 rows of 7 holes jig on 96mm centres as usual. It's a 30mm cutout, so it takes a standard 30mm guide bush on a router, and you need a 20mm bit to plunge straight down. So it's fast to use, like the trend was, but it's bigger. Straight off the bat, you've got 3 rows of 7 holes. So 3 straight away, and then you'd register it with some 30mm guide bushes. These are off-the-shelf parts from Bench Dogs. You register it in, and then you undo it and you move it up, and then you've got another 2 complete rows of holes to do. So I don't recommend buying a template just to make a standard MFT top, but if we take a standard MFT top as your point of reference, 11 holes by 7, doing it this way in landscape format, you get 21 holes done to start with. That's almost as many as the full width CNC Pro jig, and 21 times as many as the Path Guide. And then you move 1 up, another 2, and 1 up again. That's half an MFT done in just 3 moves. You do the same thing over 3 moves, so 6 moves of the jig, and you've got a complete MFT. So the fewer times you can actually move the jig, the less chance there is of any discrepancies creeping in. That's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it would actually be, so a standard MFT top is 7 rows high. So if you did it in portrait mode, you do 21 holes to start with. You've only got 4 more moves, so 5 complete moves, and you've got a full MFT top in with this template in that orientation. And of course, if you don't want a full grid, then you can leave some out. You can leave a centerpiece empty. You can just have a top and bottom rows for a guide rail, for cross-cutting, whatever you want. The rows of holes are on, as I say, 96mm centres. We've got 71mm from the bottom centre to the bottom edge. That's the standard MFT layout. And 71mm from the centre to the sides, both sides. So it doesn't matter if you butt it up against the bottom of your blank or at the top and the sides. You can just butt one edge up. So that's always going to fit. That's always going to work. You've also got from the top 37mm centres, and you've got an extra pair of holes here on 48mm, and then you've got the one in the middle here, which is like a number 5 on a dice, in case you wanted a diagonal one in somewhere. So between them, there's enough variety, I think, for you to do pretty much whatever you wanted. For example, if you wanted to use the Bench Dogs quad hinge, you've got 48mm holes, so you can, you know, do your thing and then cut an extra couple of holes in close to the edge, if that's what you wanted, or if you wanted to take it as close as you possibly could, then you could use the 37mm side. So just line that up against the edge, clamp it down, line these in line with the others, and you're in business. Pretty flexible. It's a relatively cheap and easy thing to make because it is just 12mm MRMDF with holes in it, and I think it kind of ticks all the boxes for me, scratches all the itches that the other MFT jigs left behind. Obviously the Path jig is, you know, a lovely looking thing, but it is terribly slow. It only needs a drill, to be fair, and you do get rulers with it and all that sort of stuff, but it's 200 quid and you're drilling one hole at a time, so it's, you know, it's a fairly leisurely thing to do. The Trend jig was fast because it is a straight plunge, but it's more moves of the jig because the jig is relatively small. It's only got 10 holes on it, 2 rows of 5, and because you're using 3 dogs to reference off most of the time, you're only actually cutting 4 holes at a time. The CNC Pro jig, obviously a double row of holes, full width, but the actual action was relatively slow with the guide bush and the 12.7mm half-inch cutter, because you're making those little round movements. It's also putting more stress on the jig, so potentially more scope for discrepancies creeping in. With this one, you're not making many moves. It's a straight plunge down, so you're not moving the jig around. It's using off-the-shelf parts for registration. And overall, I just think it's ticking all the boxes. It really is. Ooh, that's a good one. I think I mentioned when I talked about the Trend jig, because you're kind of beholden to the 20mm bit that you're using to get the perfect sized hole. I've had a 20mm bit, which 20mm bit for your MFT video plan for ages, and I've sort of been collecting MFT bits, and do you know what, they're all the same pretty much. I mean, if you took them and put them in a Bridgeport milling machine or a good quality engineering drill press, I bet they'd produce a hole almost identical. The issue we have is that we're putting those bits into a router, and handheld routers, with the best will in the world, they're just not that good. They're not that precise. You always get a little bit of run out. So run out is where the bit isn't spilling along its axis. It's going in a slight ellipse. You know, obviously that's woefully exaggerated, but you know what I mean. I know Ralph at Bench Dogs machines these to microns measurements. You wouldn't have to have much wobble in that bit, much run out, to actually affect the size of that hole. And I think that's what's happening with these bits. Basically, you know, take the same bit and put it in 5 different routers, you'd probably get 5 slightly different results. I think I said when I did the Trend, the Trend template, that the hole from that was ever so slightly, not loose, but not as snug as the others. And I think that's all it was coming down to the quality of the bit, which gives us a bit of a dilemma if we want to do, you know, a jig like this with a straight plunge. And the simple fact is, I think I said I talked to trend last week. And they sort of, I mentioned this to them and they sort of nodded about it. Oh yes, we'll look at that. But what I really want is a 20mm bit that's slightly undersized to accommodate a little bit of run out to get a nice snug fit on a bench dog. And it's a consequence of where we are, where the channel is, that I can actually go and have a chat with Johnny Rennie at Rennie Tools, who supplies all the solid carbide bits for the loose tenon jigs, and say, do you think you could make something like this? Yeah, no problem at all. We've got a couple that might do, and we can, we'll do a run for you, and we'll manufacture them so that we can, make them a fraction smaller. And basically, we're going to get a few of them, and I'll test each bit out in a few different routers and see which one produces the best kind of result. So yeah, that's kind of mighty impressive. That's really, really good. Ralph at Bench Dogs, said when I talked to him about perhaps giving me a price on 50 or 100 pairs of these, he said, oh yeah, whatever, I'll get you some. I bought these. Or if they don't work off the shelf, I'll make you some. So yeah, it's good. It's good. That's the MFT side of it. It took me a little while to get this together. You really do have to concentrate quite hard, even if you're just doing this. What I did was I did a straight plunge to get the 30mm holes in here. I used the trend guide as a template, put a biggest bit I had, 23mm hole through there, and then reamed the rest of it out with a flush trimming bit. And I just, whatever it was, 21, 22, the 23rd hole that I did, I just forgot to let the router stop running before I took it out, and it just caught the side of the template. So mucked that up, and mucked up the that hole as well, which is really annoying. But anyway, I put a little chamfer around those just to emphasise the fact that they're not part of the rest of the grid. So I might do that on the finished article. It was really just to hide my stuff up. But in terms of size and shape and everything, it's great. Going to get the price sorted. That's got a good price for this, and I think I'll be able to do a plain jig just as it is, and a bundle with all the hardware that you need. The rest of the hardware comes into the plus side of the jig, and for that we've got to sort of cast our mind back to the loose tenon jig plus. When I did this, I had a lot of people come to me and say, you should make that into an MFT jig, like, this is the idea of the century. Never occurred to me. Well, of course it had, 96 32mm sensors, guide bush in your router, all that sort of thing. The trouble is, and I think I mentioned this in a previous Week in the Workshop post, that to turn a 32mm row of holes for shelf pen holes into something that can drill 20mm holes on 96mm centers is a lot of work. It's going to compromise this, which is what this is just for doing shelf pen holes. You could, with some work, turn it into an MFT jig as well, but it wouldn't be a very good one, not least of which you've only got 6 holes, so many moves of the template of the jig to get a whole MFT top, for example, which isn't good. And again, we've got an 18mm guide bush because that works really well for the loose tenons. You can make it work for shelf pen nails, although it does impact on the dust collection. Obviously, you'd have to go to something 24mm probably at a minimum if you want to do 20mm holes in an MFT. More like 30 really if you want to get any kind of dust collection, and that's not really a starter for something like this. But it turns out that taking an MFT jig that's designed to put 20mm holes on 96mm centers and adding the 32mm shelf pin facility to that, well, that's much easier to do. That's much more straightforward. And we do it quite simply by adding a couple of holes, 5mm holes here and here on 32mm centres, so 32, 32, 32, yeah. And what we'll have, I haven't got this in this one, there'll be a notch in the centre to mark the centre line. So you can either butt this up against the base of your camera or mark the centre line. You drill your 1, 2, 3 holes, and then because this is set back 37mm, it's the perfect setback for shelf pin holes. Because you've got that set already, 1, 2, 3, you can then move this up and use one of these 5mm holes with a standard clevis pin that comes with the loose 10 jig, of which you have many of them. Lock that off, put a clamp on it, do the next 2, move that up 1 more hole, reference it with your pin and do the next 2, and then you've got a complete run of holes in the centre. Or you can do, you know, up to 7 holes worth. I don't know what that is in terms of distance. And of course you can extend it to, you know, as long as you want. So dust collection, no problem at all. I've had a quick play with it. It's these aren't centered properly, so it looks a real mess, so I won't show you. But I think that could be the killer feature of this little jig, because it just ticks all those boxes, the other added extras, the added value things that the Path Guide does, and that the Trend MFT jig does, those roundovers and chamfers and whatever. They're fine, but you're not going to use those very often. Whereas something like shelf pin holes, then even if you've already got a 10-minute workshop loose 10 jig, you know, it's good, but it's only going to do whatever that is, 7 at a time before you need to move the jig up again. But yeah, really chuffed with that. Really pleased with how that's come out. Looking forward to seeing the working sort of prototype from Reese, and yeah, really, I'll be very, very pleased to actually showcase it, to prototype it, to give you a demo of it properly. I did a funny little video last week. I had the sort of caretaker guy in here, old Tom, nice chap, had an IKEA chair that he wanted repaired, and I didn't really know what was wrong with it. It was a wooden slatted chair. You can buy a new one for £19, I think, but he wanted to know if he could be repaired, so I had to go at it. And I think I said a few weeks back, I was quite impressed with the quality of the video that you get off your phone, less impressed by the audio of it. But I shot a little video of that completely on my phone, talking heads and everything, and I might have that coming out in a couple of weeks. I'm not sure yet. I've got my 500th video is going to be the next one, so I'm not sure what to do with it. I would love it to be this, but I don't think I'm going to have that ready in time. So maybe a sort of slightly quirky little repair shop kind of video might go down well, but we'll see. But that's where we are for now. As always, thank you so much for your amazing support. Really pleased to be able to share this with you, because it's been I know I've talked about it for the last few weeks, but haven't actually shown it at all. But yeah, I think this could be another great product in the 10-minute workshop family of products, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting that out there and in front of some people. But yeah, that's it for this one. Thank you again. Enjoy the rest of the weekend, and I'll catch you in the next one. All right, take care.